think for all of us, our childhood forms a lot in how we see the world and our place in it. For Mom, she was born at the height of the Depression. The whole world went from the carefree roaring 20s to the stock market crash. Factories were closing, unemployment hit 25%. The whole country became poor.
Americans were forced to cut spending as much as possible, especially on food. Daily meals had to be stretched to their absolute limit.
Food was scarce. Even as kids, my mother often made plain dishes like macaroni and cheese, scalloped potatoes, some of my favorites. These were the times that formed my mother's belief in hard work and a thrifty lifestyle. Our parents and grandparents also have a major impact on our lives. I asked her about her grandparents, and this is what she had to say.
My grandfather, Emke, he came from Germany when he was a boy, 15.
Oh.
And he was a chauffeur. And I know my father only went to the 6th grade, so he was 12. And I think the boys were all put out to work at 12, bring income in for the family. And my mother only went through the 8th grade. 7 siblings there. And my father he was one of 8. And my grandfather on my mother's side, he was half American Indian. His mother was cliff dwellers in Colorado.
I don't have many memories of her father. He died in 1965 from gastric cancer. That was a pretty common thing back in those days, from all the salt and nitrates they used to preserve food. So he kind of grew up in a time before refrigeration. As far as her mother goes, she lived a lot longer, and I just remember as her being a really stern person. Whenever we went to visit her, which wasn't that often, she didn't like us playing around in the house. She actually had a formal sitting area, and the couches and everything was covered in plastic. Very strange. And since she lived in the city, her yard was pretty small, so it was pretty boring going to visit her. But on the other hand, she was very generous and kind to Kathy when we had our first child, Rebecca. My mom was a middle child. Howard Jr. was the firstborn in 1930. 2 years later, my mother was born, and 2 years after that, Dorothy, or Dottie as everyone called her. She was the baby of the family and seemed to be your mother's favorite. Both my parents were of German descent. They were born there, went to high school, lived there. And my mom really didn't talk about the early years. In 1950, my dad had been out of the service for a couple years. He met my mom at her high school graduation. They married shortly after that, and because they were young and poor, had no money, they lived with his parents for the first couple of years. While that time, my dad was working in the rug mill, so he was saving up money and trying to build a house, which he did, in Tribes Hill next to his parents' house. So that was the first house that we actually lived in. Mom never really talked about those times and never made a big deal about her anniversary. She lived kind of a simple and very frugal life. She always knew exactly how much everything cost. The economy in New York wasn't all that great back then. However, in 1964, my dad got a job at General Motors in Framingham, Massachusetts. So that's when we moved there and went to high school.
Gray sky, hello blue. There's nothing can hold me when I hold you. You feel so right, you can't be wrong. Rocking and rolling all week long. These days are all about being free. These days are all share them with me. I wanna cruise her around the town, show everybody what I found. Rock and roll with all my friends, hoping the music never ends. Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days. Saturday, what a day. Grooving all week with you. These sunshine, goodbye rain. She's wearing my school ring on the chain. She's my steady, I'm her man. I'm gonna love her all I can. These days are all, share them with me. These days are all, happy and free.
Within a year of my father transferring back to day shift, my parents got divorced. It was 1970. I was in college and didn't know what the heck was going on. After the breakup, Mom and Terry moved to Methuen and then Framingham, Mass. And when Terry turned 18, Mom took off for California. She bought a big house in Anaheim Hills, and then to cover the mortgage payments, she rented out rooms. It was kind of strange, but she did it. She managed to cover all her expenses. Ma seemed happy in those years. She was finally able to be free and make decisions on her own.
I've lived a life that's full. I've traveled each and every highway and more, much more.
I work in the engineering department. I was an engineering clerk. And then when they opened up the crafts miners, which was females and blacks and whatever, I asked one of the guys in the office if I could do the work. He says, yeah, you just check gauges and things. It was a lot more than that. It was a 3.5-month school. But anyway, I was a communication technician for 18 years, and I worked with AT&T a total of 21 years, so I get a nice little income every month from them. I planned ahead, made sure that before I took retirement that I had insurance.
That's also where she met Doc and his wife. They traveled the world together. Even after Doc's wife died, the two of them would go visiting China, Russia. There's so many countries I can't remember them all. But anyway, she really liked doing that. My mom was a good decorator, and she loved gardening. So those were her two main pursuits, along with traveling. We moved to San Diego in 1985. So we used to go up and visit Mom. It was about an hour drive away. She was working at AT&T as a tech at the time, but they starting to cut back and offered her a nice buyout for her pension, so she took it. After she stopped working, I think she got a little bored and decided to move back to New England. That, of course, started a whole bunch of house moves. At some point in time, she moved to Greenville, South Carolina. Ritchie was going to move down there, and she wanted to be down there with him. That's where she was diagnosed with breast cancer. My mother was a fighter. I mean, she did aggressive chemo, radiation, everything, and she was so sick. But she made it. She's a survivor. My mom has always been a very independent woman. However, by her mid-70s, her eyesight was getting worse, and her driving was getting scary. I can remember riding along with her. She didn't actually move her neck to look before changing lanes. She just put the directional on and moved over. So, oh my goodness. Maintaining a house was also going to be too much to handle. At this time, all our kids had moved out of the house, so we offered to take her in. Now, our house was pretty small here in California, and she was used to large houses, so we decided we needed to put a room addition on for her. We started that in 2008, and after a couple of years, Mom was able to move in with us. Mom had a hard time downsizing. She was moving from a house, so when the moving van showed up, my God, she had a ton of stuff with her. We had the whole backyard filled up with boxes. The stuff wouldn't fit into her room. The room was jammed with furniture and stuff, but it took quite a few yard sales to finally move all that stuff out of there before the rains came in the winter, which would have been a disaster. At first, this worked out fine. Mom enjoyed gardening and stuff like that, so she was able to do that here. We even had a surprise 80th birthday party. Yeah, she was very surprised to have a party because she said she'd never had one before.
How sweet it is.
However, over time, things just didn't work out. Yeah, my mom was used to calling the shots herself and, tended to just do stuff around the house without asking. Mom just decided that, okay, she's going to move in with Terry, so off she went. That lasted a year. Mom moved around a lot. I couldn't keep track of all the houses that she had. Eventually, her eyesight and hearing had deteriorated enough that she decided to move into a assisted living apartment in Saratoga. That didn't last long. She got bored there. This is when she decided to move in and help Ritchie. They got an old house in Northville and fixed it up. In her later years, she always wanted to help people, and helping Ritchie was one of the things that she really enjoyed. She was happy there, best I could tell. Ritchie and Mom were helping each other out and seemed to be working out okay, at least until her stroke in January of 2024. Mom was alert after the stroke and seemed to be mostly okay, but she was having more and more trouble getting in and out of bed. Of course, this led to her having to spend her remaining years in nursing homes. Ended up in Exeter, New Hampshire. So that seemed to be okay, but Mom didn't like it. She wasn't able to call the shots there, and she just wanted out. However, her body was failing her, and it was just a matter of time. Mom's generation didn't complain much, and they really didn't talk about the early years. Maybe they're just too difficult. She was a fighter her whole life. She fought through the cancer. She fought through all the physical ailments in her later years. Mom, you've been a fighter and a hard worker all your life. Nothing was very easy for you. I know that.
I've never been the kind to testify. I don't have the words his truth deserves. But it's a simple thing he asks, a worthy heart and willing hands. He says if I'll make the choice, he'll help me find my voice. He calls me to serve and I cannot fail him. One who has given me all that I